Streaming live via the internet. Welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver internet via fiber optic, wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. Chat live with us weekly via ispradio.com. Link technology and hardware for wireless ISPs. Tower coverage maps. Mimosa Networks, providing high-density, high-bandwidth radio products. Advanced LLC, providing retail and wholesale advanced communication services by matching providers with your bandwidth needs. And by Sitel, providing reliability in surge suppression. And now your host for ISP Radio, Steve Grabiel and Dennis Burgess.
Welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. I'm your host, Steve Grabiel, and I'm broadcasting the show from, well, actually, Dennis is broadcasting the show from St. Louis. I'm currently out in California at the home office in Seal Beach, and kind of beautiful weather out here. Got some good rain that we definitely need in Southern California, and had a busy last 2 weeks. I went home after Thanksgiving for 2 weeks and had a plan to build up a tower that a realtor had come to me saying, hey, I need to have a tower built in my area to sell homes. So we put it together pretty quick. From concept to building the tower was about a month and a half, and delivered a customer of mine was away from my network, and been talking with him. He wanted us to bring internet to his other community he's living in, and just so happened I got in contact with the tower owner, and lickety split, we put up a couple of 3-foot dishes at 30 plus miles and got 100 megs up and down, ready to develop that area. Just a real productive 2 weeks. And then over the last weekend, Saturday, I was out. We upgraded a system to Ubiquiti M2 Rocket AP and a bunch of legacy equipment off of it, and it was just running horribly. So I went to 6 houses on Saturday and upgraded everyone to the MIMO equipment, and bam, it just worked like a charm. Everyone got 40 megs squared up and down. It was awesome. But goes to show you that this legacy stuff needs to be replaced. So I've been busy. Now it's time for Christmas, and I'm here at the home office with out in California with my family. And Dennis, anything going on out there? What's the weather like out there? It sounds like you've been extremely busy near the end of the year.
You know, for being the end of the year, I don't know where everybody's wanting to either finish up projects or that there's actually some new projects starting up. It's not the typical end of the year, because normally we do get a lot of people that, they don't want to do anything over the holidays. They want to wrap it up before Thanksgiving, and then usually Thanksgiving to New Year's is kind of slow. But this year, not so much. We've definitely been very, very busy, which is always a good thing. It's always good to have and keep busy, so that's always good. As far as the weather goes, it sucks. It's been raining and cold. We had some little thunderstorms blow through. Nothing major, but that's always a good thing to have a little bit of rain, but it's definitely started finally getting cold, too, as well. And it looks like we're going to have a rainy Christmas. It's not even a snowy Christmas, just rainy. So we'll see what happens with that. On the news front, there's not a whole lot going on. Obviously, we have WISP America coming up in Louisville, Kentucky next year. We'll definitely touch base on that. I definitely want to also inform everybody that last week we had a really great 2 weeks ago, we had a really great show with Steve Curran from Lerman Center on the Open Internet oral arguments, and that was really, really good information. We had a lot of views on that, and I'm really glad because we had a lot of great information on that. So make sure you go to ispradio.com, check out that. You can always watch that anytime via our website as well. Furthermore, I want to also make sure that everybody knows officially that WISPA itself is a sponsor of ispradio.com now. So we haven't got their logo up there just yet, but we will. And I'm really glad because I know WISPA and everybody else wants to ensure that we get the best information out there. And I think this is a really great way of getting that done. And they're showing us a little support with that as well. So thank you, WISPA, as well for that. Other topics in the news is probably the big one is the Cox ruling that just came out. So basically what this says And I'm not going to, again, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn, so that's always really important. But the basics is this, is that the judge really kind of ruled on a number of things, but really what they said is you knew who was infringing, you had proof of infringement, you did not have a good plan, or if you did have a plan, you did not wish to follow it to get them disconnected. And the bigger problem was that during discovery, Cox, there was discovery of emails and information inside Cox that basically said, this is our policy, but we're not really enforcing it. They literally said things like that. So they kind of shot themselves in their own foot, if that makes sense as well. However, keep in mind, per the Open Internet Order and the DMCA notice, that all ISPs are required to go through this. So keep that in mind. You definitely may want to look for your DMCA policy and to figure out how you can process those. Because this is all really good information, we need to make sure that as wireless ISPs that we adhere to that. Now, right now, when we look at this whole court ruling, is it's a ruling for $25 million to BMG from Cox Communications, stating that Cox did not fall under safe harbor because of this. So it's very important for us as WISPs to follow that and to understand this could be a little bit of big things. Whenever we look at Cox, big company, lots of money, lots of the problem is that they had money, they had all smaller providers. Of a lawsuit, a court filing that they can go back on. And this is really interesting information. We'll have to see if we can get another lawyer or somebody on the show to talk about what the requirements are for this. But it's very important that now that they have this ruling, now they can actually take that ruling and they can start going to smaller companies and say, hey, guess what? I don't even need to take you to court because we know you're in violation. Here's why, yada, yada, yada. And, now they could technically try to extort money from, ISPs, threatening legal action that, of course, can't afford it. And I don't think it's a good, I think this whole DMCA system is not, my opinion, again, not legal opinion, but my opinion is that it's not the best system out there, and that there are fairly big holes for people to misuse, to not use the system correctly, and not have to provide things that can cause harm to the accused. And while my opinion differs than other people's, obviously, it's still an opinion. So you guys really need to make sure you focus on that, because that was a big case. It is big that, hey, all this information and safe harbor was not given. And that's really the big thing, is that this is the first case where safe harbor was not given. So it's very, very important that everybody looks at that as well. So with that said, Steve, I think we got everything else ironed out here. And all the other news is pretty straightforward. I know we have a great guest, though, this week.
Yeah, just to briefly talk more on the DMCA stuff. We had an attorney, a friend of mine, talk about it a while back. And, I mean, is there policies that we need to be putting on our website, you think, to mention DMCA? I mean, it sounds like Cox had one, but they just never followed through with their own policy.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a little difference in this, is that they had a policy, and then there was internal documents that basically said, oh, we're going to ignore the policy, or something similar to that effect. So that was some your lawyer review what you. It's not necessarily just it's the act. But it also sees that after so many infringements with over a certain period of time, and this is just something else, think about this, it's something else that you as a small ISP have to try to track now, that you have to sit there and to disconnect the customer because of this. So, again, I'm at a difference of opinion on it, but that doesn't matter. What really matters is you need to get with your legal counsel to understand the ramifications that could be, and that the gate is open. I have a feeling that we're going to see more actions by these types of companies.
Right. There's been
and actions specifically against ISPs.
Right. Well, thanks for that information, Dennis. That's eye-opening, of course. Well, like you said, we've got a great show lined up today. Today we have Alan Gatlin. He's with Bridgewave. He's the sales director of the Western and Central United States. And Alan, are you there?
I am here. How does this come through?
Oh, it sounds great. So, Alan, tell us a little bit about the history of Bridgewave, a little bit of history behind you, and then let's talk about Bridgewave.
Very good. Well, I'll start a little bit with my background. I'm one of those people that came up in the industry. I was with a company called Livingston Enterprises. For those who may remember Remote Access Server, RASs, that was the dial-up modem days. And we ended up also part of the development team for Radius, which I'm sure many of your listeners probably still use, or a version of it. That company was acquired by Lucent Technologies. I was transferred over as a senior system engineer and eventually engineering director for the Waveland pre-802.11 product. So I was involved with the design and installation of a lot of the 2.4 gig mountaintop to mountaintop, point to point in the days that 2.4 was actually usable. So I've come up through this. I've also spent some time on the dark side with MSOs, with cable manufacturer for the cable boxes. So I have also an understanding of kind of some of their deployments. Principally now I've been with Bridgewave now for almost coming up on a year. Bridgewave is a little different than probably most of your listeners may remember. About 2 years ago, Bridgewave as a brand and manufacturer was acquired by their manufacturer, Remic. And Remic owns the factory, provided the majority of the engineering work, based in Poway, California, Southern California. And then recently, Remic was acquired by Mosley, who is an engineering firm that also owns both RF and baseband ASIC. The Reliance, the factory just for deploy OEM split is the brand, and is 60, 70, 80, and other products both. A few of the analog broadcasts, but everything.
Well, talking about that some of the myths that you heard.
Of course. Well, first of all, Bridgewave historically, as a product, has been the millimeter wave, 60 unlicensed, and then 70, 80 lightly licensed. One of the misconceptions is that that's all the products we have. We actually have, again, 6 through 38. And one of the things that we do, so we're able to give a full spectrum of products and solve problems rather than trying to force a particular solution. And we're also seeing a dramatic increase in terms of throughput, which will, in all of these spectrums, as long as the FCC provides us enough channel size. So that's one of the other. The second is that Bridgewave historically, up till a couple of years ago, is pretty rigid on pricing because in the 60, 70, 80 space, what has happened now is that prices have adjusted dramatically to market conditions. Also, we will work with the service provider in terms of meeting budgetary goals. Majority of the time we can. Obviously, some situations that's not possible. But, for instance, we just dropped pricing on our link at our project size, about $4,500 plus antennas. So pricing has adjusted dramatically to market conditions. We also will do non-standard pricing based upon situations and needs.
Yeah, volume, I'm sure, right?
Yes, like right now, I apologize. I'm driving to a customer who they're a commercial with that their customers accelerated their MDU deployment, so I'm delivering another 15 links to someone today and have already helped them go through the design phase. We will do the initial feasibility, reliability, and antenna and fade margin calculation as part of our service without charge.
Oh, wow, okay.
Also on the 70-80 gigahertz, we actually own the spectrum for the U.S., and we can reassign within 24 hours and get people up and on the air. They then can either accept our assignment or they can apply for their own license and just work with the FCC on that. So there's not the delay. We can immediately get, and that's included in the price of the hardware.
Now, is there recurring payments to Bridgewave to utilize your spectrum you own?
No. And if they want their own, it's $75 for 10 years.
Wow. So what kind of links?
The ones I'm offering right now, +0 configuration. And for those in the audience not familiar, that's where you have two radios into an ODU coupler on one antenna. And so you've got two different polarizations. That will be full duplex 6 gigabits. And then I've got one I designed yesterday that's actually going to double that. There's going to be two 2+0 with about 4-foot antenna spacing. So they will have 12 gigabits. That's today. Later this year, you're going to see, later in 2016, you're going to see actually step up to 10 gigabits full duplex. So the nice thing about 7080 is that you've got so much channel size that as you add efficiencies that you can get some pretty dramatic throughput full duplex. And that's always important. Be sure and ask, right, is this half duplex or full duplex that I'm getting? Because that will obviously affect what you're doing.
Exactly. What kind of distances are you getting with this 80 gig product, and what does rain do to it?
Well, it's interesting. That's why you have to run the fade margins and calculations. I will not sell, let's just put it that way, without reams of disclaimers, anything less than 5.9 reliability, which amounts to about 30 minutes a year. So 99.999% reliable. I've got one in Page, Arizona, about as much of a desert environment as you can get, that's almost 5 miles. Whereas in Seattle, even with 2-foot dishes, which is 2.5 foot, the max miles at 5.9. So it's so dependent upon the moisture content, because rain fade is an issue.
Yes.
Well, yeah, advertises to your specific situation, and we run against 4 databases for historic success. A lot of the bets we're even going more conservative because we're already starting to experience heavier issues of rain, and this also speaks to it. Anytime you're over 50% of the theoretical distance of a link, using adaptive rates is the best practice. Because that at least will give you a
what does that necessarily mean to the provider?
Yeah, what that means is that they're going to maintain a link. You also want to know modulation rates. If pretty much all the, again, best practice is that you do a form of QoS either on port type, traffic type, or VLAN. It's probably the most common is VLAN. That way you prioritize. And if you step out of QAM down to BBSK, at least you'll have minimum connectivity almost regardless of weather conditions.
Right.
So you want to know what's the worst case scenario and what's my most important traffic. And I guess I'm still surprised with a lot of people that don't use quality of service. And I think that's just cheap insurance.
A lot of times we get links like this that, especially if they're long, where they're going to go down multiple times a year because of weather conditions. Most of the time we want the link to act so that we can fail to another type of link that maybe is not as fast but is more reliable. That's a bad term, I apologize. It is more less affected by rain, or weather and atmospheric. So the example is even whenever you're in 24 gigahertz, you get rain fade. And the example is that if you know you're going to fade, I would rather it to fade and then drop so that I can sit there and make a routing determination to put it back onto another link that, again, maybe may not be as fast but does not have as many issues or have as many atmospheric, which is fine. I mean, not by a radio that,
Mm-hmm.
And they will have the prime 5 or whatever they have over. Failover usually needs to be 50 milliseconds, and you can set the threshold of fail. It doesn't have to be no throughput. It can be a degree of that. So there's a lot of controllability. We also of these high bandwidth being used in a hot standby for fiber. We were talking before the show of worshiping the backhoe gods, and in urban areas, fiber cuts are not uncommon. And if you've got a service level agreement in place, it's going to cost you money if you don't have provision for backup, especially for those periods that may be extended half a day or even an hour.
there you go.
That functionality is within the radio, so that not only can you do the least cost routing within your switch or your router on the back end, but the radios themselves can talk and have some intelligence.
And then when that weather condition blows through, of course, your router could switch it back over.
Absolutely.
That's what you see out in the field,
right? And also remember that, that you'll see indications of interruption that'll immediately come back because, again, it's not along the whole path. On 60 gigs, because you're limited to a theoretical distance of 1 kilometer, or about a little more than a half mile, adaptive rate really doesn't buy you anything unless you're at the ragged edge. You probably shouldn't be doing 60 gig anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other interesting misconception, not about Bridgewave, but in general about especially higher bandwidth wireless, or higher frequency wireless, is the use of AES encryption. Most people still think of wireless in terms of 802.11, 5 gig, 2.4 and 5 gig, where there's huge side lobes. The beam width on 80 gigs is right at about 0.6 degrees. So less than 1 degree. Less than 1 degree. So if you're concerned about security, obviously if the mandate is that if it's HIPAA for a hospital or public safety, you do what you got to do. But in most cases, when he breaks the beam, the ability to hack into a signal is challenging. And if you're using some sort of VLAN anyway, again, you always have to judge the cost versus the benefit.
Right. So in that spectrum, it's like a pinpoint, and aiming is very critical and painful.
Well, it's interesting. I found that I can do it now in about 45 minutes aside. The first time it took me about 3 hours until I learned the trick. Is that you tighten it down to where you can barely move it. And first of all, you've got to have your target dB level. And you're not just you're actually shooting for a specific number.
Right.
And then you do your horizontal sweep extremely slow. Tighten that, then you do your vertical sweep. And once you've done it a few times, it's really pretty quick. If it's too loose, you're going to sit there and flop around, and you don't tighten it enough, and you go your vertical and you bounce out your horizontal. So there's a touch to it. It's just a matter of practice. The first time is a little painful. If you have someone mentor you, nothing beats being shown. And that isn't always possible, but that's obviously best of both worlds.
Exactly. I have to concur with you on a 24 gig link I built. Once I tightened it down after giving up, it locked in.
Yep. It's crazy how that works. The other thing that it's really, really important to do, because we continue to run into this in the industry, is that don't buy your equipment until you have your license, if you're doing 6 through 38. Anything other than 18 or a few others, 18 gig, are banned. And if you buy the wrong band, it's a major issue because these cannot be adjusted in the field today. Now, that kind of brings me to what's changing. Now, I'm an extra class amateur, AI6KO. In amateur radio, we've had software definable radios for many years. I was surprised how that hasn't migrated as rapidly into the microwave industry. However, that is coming. And one thing that you will see, starting probably fourth quarter 16, first quarter 17, is essentially one hardware platform per spectrum that is software adjustable to band. And to me, that's a big deal for hot sparing. Because, everybody tries to sell a warranty, but if you've got multiple deployments, sparing makes the most sense as long as you don't have to spare for every subband. And that's probably one of the biggest technical innovations I think you'll see coming in the next year is the adaptation with the chipsets to be able to do at least quasi-software.
Is Bridgewave software defined?
That's where we're heading because we now on our chipsets, that's the design that we're going to roll out. And we're going to do it like 1 for 23 because there's 5 or 7, I think it's 5 subbands within 23. So there'll be just one platform that can be then software defined to the subband you need rather than having to stock each. That's a big deal. It also will reduce the size and weight of the units. Already the ODUs that we do are pretty efficient. Obviously the wind loading factor is the dish itself, not the unit. However, You'll see them even become lighter and smaller. But controlling your chipsets allows you to do that rather than depending on someone else to figure it out.
Right. So Bridgewave is a point-to-point solution from 6 to 80 gig. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And been around for quite a while using the Orinoco stuff back in the day.
Over 20 years. Yeah, and the various iterations over 20 years.
So what's the new latest, the awesomest thing that most of your customers are looking forward to? I mean, I know you mentioned the software-defined radios, SDRs, but is there a new product that whenever you went to the last trade show, I come to you and say, why do I need a Bridgewave radio? What is the difference between competing with that versus a SAF versus other licensed manufacturers?
I think there's a couple. One is that our continuing technology improvements and the ability to control everything from the factory to the chips, very few others can say or do that. And to adapt. Flexibility is the key. Now, some of the things that we're seeing, and you'll see these within everybody, I believe in gigabit Zowie SSPs. So rather for these multiple gig radios, rather than having to lack on the back end multiple streams, you can pull down one. Now,
one fiber optic cable.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What was that, Steve?
So you're saying one fiber optic cable up the tower to a multiple set of ODUs?
What you can have rather than, yes. Because what you've got is one ODU that's got, like today, on the 6 gig 2+0 configuration, there are 6 fiber links that are coming down. That would be aggregated into one or condensed into one link. So you don't have fiber running everywhere, which with multi-mode, most people, a lot of tower configurations are single mode. So what this does is one less thing to go wrong, break, drop, all those fun things that seem to happen when you're up on a tower or a pole.
Right, from the tower climber perspective, being able to run power up the tower and one fiber is critical.
That's correct. And I'm a big advocate for direct DC power. PoE, because often power isn't as easily regulated as we all hope, especially in municipal environments. I just prefer direct DC rather than doing PoE, because that's one less thing to fail or get taken advantage of. I'm also a real advocate on these larger bandwidth deployments of using AV power supplies and sources, so that at 2 a.m., which we all know that's when things go down, you don't have to roll a truck. Literally, it'll flip over, it'll send you an SNMP alert, you can go out and fix it at your leisure.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any other major, again, whenever I'm comparing similar bands, similar performance between manufacturers and licensed radios, is there anything else that, sets you guys apart that just goes, this is why you always want to use Bridgewave? Obviously, because he drives and takes parts to customers if he can.
Yeah, customer service.
Yeah, the thing too is we don't sell direct. We do sell through distribution, so availability is not a function of what we've got in our warehouse. We have multiple distributors, so that you come up short and need something right away. Most situations, it's immediately available or shortly thereafter, rather than having to be manufactured. Pricing is often in the world today, and that's another misconception. I can do non-standard pricing and tell the distributor what's going to be to the end user.
Right, and your main facilities are in Poway, California, correct?
That's where our engineering is primarily there, where we do that, and our testing. Our factory is international. Right now, if something's ordered, typically it's 10 days to get it here, depending on exactly what it is and what's needed. So that's why we have our distribution partners stocking.
And who resells the Bridgewave product for you guys?
We've got Tesco, Tally.
Go to one of those distributors, and they would help shepherd me through the whole process of doing the engineering and getting the coordination and all that stuff. Is that how you guys operate?
No. In theory, that would be an ideal world. But remember that distributors know a lot about a little. I prefer that people contact myself or West and Central. Jim, he has a little bit of a Central. Talk to us directly. Let us help you, because we know it better than anybody else.
Right. The people would be talking to the
and,
manufacturer.
Yeah, that'd be Jim and I, because we're both highly technical. We, in many cases, come on site depending on the need, the situation. Obviously, for one link, unless it's local, probably not going to happen. But like today, I'm driving up links to a customer that has a critical need, because the idea is service and also responsiveness. I really pride myself in responding back in less than 24 hours. Sometimes it's the same day, within 6 hours or less. Because I'm very findable, and I think that's also extremely important when you're dealing with issues. I'm also, because I'm near the factory, engineering, I'm also a point of escalation. If there is a technical issue or problem that for whatever reason isn't being resolved, I can usually go down.
It's having some, and that's for me. I mean, I've had a few vendors that I've used that have really stepped up to the plate like that, and then others that, they're too big for their britches, if you will, and I have to figure it out myself.
Well, and frankly, 2 years ago, you probably would have said that about Bridgewave.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with change in management team, pretty much almost everybody on the sales side, let's just say that the attitude is different. Not to criticize or say, because it's different times, different situations, but right now it is extremely customer-centric and solving the problem. I'm not going to try to make an 80 gig fit where you really need to be doing 18.
Right.
And the idea is to be able to present the ISP with options. They may not say,
right.
Here, just go do this, figure it out.
So just to recap, own in the United States that you guys are willing to help us out with if we want to go that path?
70 and 80 gigahertz. The licensed mill.
Okay, and what, just to recap, what's the effective throughput of some of these links that you've seen in the field that are 70 and 80 that you guys help the ISP out with?
Well, let me just start at the bottom. 6 gig, because the channel size is approximately 200, whereas you get up, and that works pretty much up through 11, can go up to 330. 18 through 35 is right at a gig. Once you get into the 60, you're looking at 1 gig of full duplex. The 70 and 80, that's where you're going to see the expansion. We're currently at 3 gigs full duplex per radio. And then this in 2006.
I imagine.
The other thing that, especially for the smaller WISPs, that sometimes they forget is hospitals, clinics, very short distances. The 60 gig product is extremely cost effective and gives them a gigabit that they can add AES encryption on and do a campus environment or a hospital campus environment. And sometimes people forget those customers or multi-dwelling units. Almost every town has some form of strip center or other where the landlords are looking for revenue sources. So these are other thoughts that a WISP can take and talk to building owners that have multiple tenants and provide them a major link and just additional recurring revenue. While I cut my teeth on the individual user, I found through my experience that the commercial user causes the least amount of service calls and is the highest profitability. And so I tended to focus on those.
No, I absolutely agree. Well, Alan?
No, please, if you call the main sales number, the 408 number on the webpage, it does automatically follow to my office and then to my cell. 99% of the time you'll get me on my cell. The emails will go to either Jim or I, depending on where they come from. We want to help you look at solutions for you, and both of us are very painfully honest sometimes in saying this just isn't going to work. And many times we can suggest alternative solutions.
Right. So what's the website?
The website is
site, and they can get a hold of you. Tell anyone something that's savvy enough. Well,
I think we're really good, Alan. I really appreciate you taking the time. Gives everybody a little bit more information about what Bridgewave is, what they do, and what you guys do, and how your products are aligned with the wireless ISP community.
Right. I will add one-day technical training. We hold them throughout the country, and they can get on that list. Plus, I will do both a sales-oriented as well as a technical-oriented webinar as needed without charge.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we've been speaking with Alan Gatlin with Bridgewave. He's the sales director of the Western and Central United States, and it sounds like they've got a tremendous point-to-point system that'll do a lot of packet pushing. So with that, I would like to close the show out and say Merry Christmas to all. Next week, we're going to take a break and be back in the new year with some new guests to tell us all about their products. Who do we got on next week, or in 2 weeks, Dennis?
Let's take a look at that. Didn't have that pulled up, but I will. Looks like we have, we're going to get Lane. I had had some family emergencies that we had to get taken care of. So I'm sure we'll get him straightened out for in January. But looks like we have, let's see here, open internet compliance issues. It's going to be a great session. The 6th. Lots of good stuff. Network disclosures, compliance with internet conduct standards, general enforcement issues, things like that. We have Josh with, what is this, Tilt Me So? And then we're also going to have Bill of Bridgewave, and they make a number of also 5 gig backhaul products, things like that, and that's on the 20th. So we do have that schedule up on the website, so make sure you go visit ispradio.com, and we can get that schedule up there. Or I'm sorry, it is already up there. We'll get Service Plus back on that schedule probably pretty quickly, probably 7th or the 3rd. Keep pushing that data is there.
All right. Again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, folks.
Yep, take it easy, and I would like to see everybody, I know we'll see everybody next year, on the 6th, January 6th is when our next show will be. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packages